Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for today's Spatial Innovation webinar. Today's topic is modernizing land administration with Parcel Fabric, a topic many of you have shown great interest. I'm Matthew Webster. I'm Vice President of the Corporate Services Division at Spatial Innovision. And today with us is Mr. Roshan Clark, Deputy CEO at Spatial, Mr. Douglas Nelson, Land Administration Sector Lead at Spatial Innovision. We also want to welcome two members from the Esri team. With us today is Brandon uh, Tutelo. Uh, I should know this. And the global business development manager, land administration at Esri, and Matthew Woodleaf, solutions engineer at Esri. Today, our full complement will help you to identify where you are in the land modernization spectrum. Next steps you should approach, and also trying to demystify the parcel fabric implementation, addressing common concerns raised by users adapting to the technology. However, before I go any further, I'd like to invite Roshan to just share a brief overview about the long-standing spatial Esri relationship. Roshan?
Hi, morning. Thank you, Matthew. Good morning, good afternoon, even good night to some of our audience around the world that may be part of this webinar. If you're joining for the first, welcome to the Spatial Webinar Series, a monthly take on the latest development in geospatial technology. And if you're returning, it's good to have you back. We normally do this on the last week of each month. And we welcome you to share any topics that you want us to explore. Of course, the Spatial Innovision Company and Esri relationship is that of a distributor where we distribute the Esri software and technology to the entire English-speaking Caribbean. But it goes way beyond that. It goes to what I would like to say a joint vision of ArcGIS footprints being seen all over the Caribbean and it being leveraged to really and truly just help our lives easier, to be a little easier and our work to be a little easier and more powerful, more meaningful. So, of course, the GIS space is a very wide one, but we chose Parcel Fabric to dive into today. Of course, guided by my colleague Douglas Nelson, who is the lead on this webinar. This is something that is important to us, as you could imagine. Folks may be at different stages along the way of modernizing your whole land management division in your respective territories. But this webinar is to reach you wherever you are and show you the full story and hopefully help you to get further to where you'd like to go. Of course, we had the user conference a week or two ago, and that is where we also saw a very um, uh, big spike again in interest. So we are trying to answer your call to speak to this particular topic, and at that point, on that note, I'd like to pass over to the experts now to walk you through. The last thing I would say is that take your notes and stay for the entire webinar, but be sure to leverage the Q&A at the end because we have experts from Spatial and from Esri that are on this call and are very happy and willing to answer any questions that you may have or address any concerns. So having said that, let me pass to Doug. Douglas, morning.
Good morning, Roshan. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Roshan indicated, today's webinar is on modernizing land administration with Parcel Fabric. Now, GIS technology helps in managing all aspects of land information and land records, including land tenure, land value, land management, and land use. With a comprehensive GIS-based land administration system, governments can improve land information management, property valuation and analysis, and communication with the public. Though this webinar focuses on modernizing parcel management using the Parcel Fabric, we will briefly describe all components of land administration using the ArcGIS platform. ArcGIS for land administration supports three fundamental systems. These necessary systems are the system of record, which deal with land parcels, the system of insight that deals with valuation, and the system of engagement that deals with stakeholder and public engagement. GIS efficiently delivers all three on a single platform, allowing governments to accurately represent and understand property value, as well as provide secure and authoritative land records and parcel data for widespread government and public use. In a future webinar, we will focus on the solutions and tools for value analysis, which includes value analysis dashboard, ArcGIS Pro 2D and 3D visualization, analysis, and data maintenance, extensions like spatial analysis and geostatistical analysis, as well as advanced tools like ArcGIS Insight and management tools for your workforce, like workforce management. When we deal with stakeholder engagement in the future, we will cover solutions and apps like ArcGIS Hub, story maps, operations dashboard, and public solutions, maps, and apps. ArcGIS is a platform for land administration, organizes these applications and tools into a set of configurable solutions to support the full range of workflows of a cadastral and valuation departments. A wide variety of data types can be ingested and collected using ArcGIS. This includes mobile device application that can work offline and be used to record property boundaries and to document property attributes. These mobile apps can be paired with external GPS to attain a higher degree of accuracy. It also includes applications for planning and processing drone imagery. On the management side, the Esri sets the industry standard for parcel management and have specific tools for editing parcels, maintaining parcel history, visualizing parcels in 3D, and much more. Analysis comes into play for spatially adjusting parcels, predicting property values, and using artificial intelligence and machine learning to extract boundaries from high-resolution imagery. This is very important because it saves a lot of time from having to click over the image to create the vectors. Different information products can be published and also be delivered as web services to a multiplicity of stakeholders dependent on your data. This is one common platform for delivering end-to-end capabilities for the entire parcel data supply chain. Now, as Roshan pointed out, there is a land administration modernization spectrum that stretches across a different set of capabilities. Land agencies may be at various stages of the land administration modernization spectrum with respect to the format of their land records and the tools used to manage them. Agencies may range from having paper-based systems all the way to the most advanced ArcGIS Pro Parcel Fabric. At different stages, key factors such as the connection of land records to the base legal record document, how parcel record data are collected and added, how these parcels are maintained collectively, and how land record information are shared and disseminated. These may differ significantly depending on where you are along the spectrum. However, wherever you are, wherever your agency is on this modernization spectrum, there is a direct path to the most modern ArcGIS Pro Parcel Fabric. ArcGIS Pro provides the best, ArcGIS Pro Parcel Fabric provides the best connection to official tenure record, supports the widest variety of data collection and record formats that can be imported, provide the best tools to manage land records and to produce and products and solutions to share and disseminate information with stakeholders. Now, depending on where you are on the spectrum, these challenges will affect you to varying degrees. Challenges relating to data, legal framework, process efficiency, analytics, stakeholder engagement, staffing, and technology. Let's go a little deeper into these. When we look at the data category, we know you may have challenges relating to quality management, topological integrity, where the boundaries may not touch or meet where they should, spatial accuracy. You may have an issue with having custom or multiple formats to contend with, and also an issue with the currency of the data. From a legal framework perspective, it might be difficult to have a single system representing the legal and the physical world, that is cartographically accurate, and can support many sources and description of records, like meets and bounds or using coordinates. Technology for 3D cadastre is vital because increasingly we are living in multi-tenancy high-rise dwellings, and field data sometimes does not fit the legal framework. There is a mismatch between what is written on the legal document and the field data that was collected. From a process efficiency point of view, you may have inadequate automation of your QA process. You may find that data is being re-entered, so there's redundant data entry. You may have too many tools and formats to contend with, which again makes things inefficient. You might not be able to properly monitor work, so you develop process bottlenecks. And you may have issues relating to accessing data and distributing this data. For instance, if you are on a system that only runs across a local area network, but you have users that are located in different locations. The other categories of issues related to the analytical capabilities, where you are unable to analyze the accuracy, reliability, the activity level, and trends. You may have issues with tracking operational key performance indexes, or having visualization that provides deep insights. Also, you may have decision support tools that are inadequate, or you may not even have decision supporting tools. Of course, stakeholder engagement needs to meet modern expectations in terms of information and data should be current, accurate, and reliable, easy to consume, and in these modern times, it should be smart. Now, staff sometimes have long learning curves, and your system might not enforce best practices, or it might not adequately track user identity for proper auditability. Also, based on the type of technology you are using, you may have difficulty with maintenance and interoperability with other systems in your enterprise. So the answer to this is the Parcel Fabric run from ArcGIS Pro. Parcel Fabric provides a comprehensive framework for managing, editing, and sharing parcel data in both a multi-user and a single-user environment. In a multi-user environment, the Parcel Fabric can be edited and maintained using a service-based architecture. And a service-based architecture allows you to share the Parcel Fabric across all platforms, desktop, mobile, and web. And different workflows can be enabled on different clients in the field and in the office. In terms of the information model, the Parcel Fabric stores a data set of connected parcels on a parcel network. Parcels are composed of polygon features, line features, and point features. The Parcel Fabric is a record-driven system that organizes parcel data based on the form in which it was originally recorded. So, therefore, parcel data recorded on legal records such as plans, plats, deeds, and records of survey are created and edited in response to changes in the legal record using record-driven workflows. Very importantly, the Parcel Fabric imposes certain control, which you can define within your organization in terms of the topological rules that might be followed. Sometimes boundaries can overlap if you are having like a particular zone that represents some key information. It also imposes attribute rules, which all of this means that you have a built-in quality assurance. And of course, it allows you to isolate errors as features. This is very advanced treatment. Now at this stage, I'm going to pass over to our Esri colleague, Brandon Tortlet, to delve deeper into the Parcel Fabric.
All
Brandon.
right. Thank you so much, Douglas, and good morning to one and all. As you've heard, my name is Brandon Tortlet, and my colleague Matt Woodleaf and I are members of the land administration team here at Esri. So it's very good to meet you all, at least virtually, and we look forward to continuing the conversation today. So as Douglas said, my portion of the presentation is going to transition a little bit and really kind of drill down into the Parcel Fabric in terms of what are some of the drivers, what are some of the key considerations about each the various aspects anyway of Parcel Fabric. And so I'll begin with the first, which is the point that it is simple and it's easy to adopt. So what do we mean by that? So with the Parcel Fabric and ArcGIS Pro, you can migrate the data that you have today in the condition that it is in now, and then you can clean it up and you can improve it. And we'll talk about what we mean by that here in the presentation, but you can improve and clean up the data as it is or after it is migrated and while it is in the Parcel Fabric. And that's a change for those that may know the ArcMap Parcel Fabric. And it really is about reducing the learning curve too. So again, easy to adopt. So using the same set of editing tools means that for those of you that are familiar with ArcGIS Pro, hopefully you've had a chance to play around with it or are currently using it. The editing tools that are in ArcGIS Pro for editing any other kind of feature, those same editing tools work here for editing the parcels in Parcel Fabric. There's not a separate toolbar to learn. It does come with various configurable tasks for the common workflows that you have. It has default symbology. So it really is possible to hit the ground running with the ArcGIS Pro Parcel Fabric. It is aligned, it's consistent, it's nothing unusual, it's not specialized in terms of the layers and the publications and so forth. Simple feature classes, subtypes, domains, parcel types have its own schema. So again, easy to get up and running, and it certainly provides a lot of efficiency as well. So we'll go to the next slide, Douglas. Thank you. So the second one then is prevent, detect, fix. So really all driven around data quality. So this uses various engines. So parcel rules, so we can detect topological issues, geometric issues rather, using topology rules and checking for various errors in your and issues in your data, and visualizing those, and also checking for attribute rules. So as it says here, the notion of what is a bad parcel. So the rules that you use to detect and to be aware of the issues, the problems in your data is something that can be done using the tools out of the box, but you can also configure your own rules in terms of how you detect errors. And certainly fixing at your own pace is a nice thing too, right? So you have your data, you can see what the errors are. Depending on what the error is, that will dictate what needs to be done to improve it, right? So maybe to research it more, to look up the document, to do a field visit, that sort of thing. You determine that, but it certainly starts with the ability to detect what the rules are, excuse me, what the issues are, what the errors are, and you can visualize those errors on multiple clients. And everything, you're going to hear this a lot in what we're going to say, everything is configurable. So if there are exceptions and you need to make it your own way, configure your own rules, that's not a problem. And so with that, we're going to kind of change things over here and do the first demonstration of ours with my colleague, Matt Woodleaf, and then I'll come back with some more drivers after that. So over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Brandon. All right, I'm taking over the screen share now, so you should be seeing my screen with ArcGIS Pro. So kind of to reiterate things that Brandon talked about, the modern cadastral agency is dependent upon to be that responsible managing agency for the ownership, value, and use of land. And this concept that we're alluding to is called good governance. To be successful in helping the agency achieve this good governance, the modern and sustainable land administration system needs to be able to retain and maintain all that information. And by embracing technology such as GIS, this can help you achieve that goal for your agency and your land administration system. So I'm pretty excited to show you how ArcGIS Pro 2.8 and the Parcel Fabric can and should be part of your land administration system. So let's start with an overview of what the Parcel Fabric is by using some parcels from a medium-sized city inside the United States. Before we get started, I want to introduce a couple concepts. One is called the record. The record is the core of the Parcel Fabric. This record is a container for your parcels and is a one-to-many relationship in that many parcels can be part of a single record. In this case, my idea is following a letter number format, but that's not required. It can be all text, it can be all numbers, or it can be any combination. Secondly, I'm using parcels here. And I have mine named text parcels, but they can be named anything you like. You're not beholden to this type of schema. Essentially, you can use your own data model and the Parcel Fabric will adapt to your nomenclature. So now the terms are clearer, let's see this stuff in action. Okay. Here we go. How the meeting controls. All right, moving on. So let's see the stuff in action here. So as Brandon alluded to, the tools in regular ArcGIS Pro are the same that we work with the Parcel Fabric. But when compared with the Parcel Fabric, they get some additional capabilities. So a typical workflow for a map technician is to take those two parcels and merge them together. So we're going to just use the simple merge tool. And the only thing that we need to do here is give this parcel an ID. And hit the merge button. So I realized that was a super simple example, but what's really exciting here is what the Parcel Fabric is doing behind the scenes with that simple merge tool. So turning on my Parcel Fabric, we can see that the record name and type has been maintained through that merge function. We also can see that the parcel's lineage, as we'll get to earlier or later on, has also been maintained. So all of the activities that went into making this new parcel have been tracked. So including the new parcel ID, the square footage has been recalculated, and everything has been recombined based on the original parcels. And what's more, so click on the parcel here and then open the pop-up. Now this is for the United States, and this is very specific to the land administration system inside the US, but it can fit your land administration system as well. So you can see that the lineage of the tax parcels and all the other attributes with the parcels maintain and continue to go through the entire cadastral framework. So let's move on and get to another section here. So a lot of you may have concerns about migrating from ArcMap. So the Parcel Fabric that I worked with just now was created by running this upgrade to ArcMap Parcel Fabric tool. And that comes built into ArcGIS Pro. But if you're new to GIS or ArcGIS in general, you can create your own from any polygon layer. So let me show you how to do that. So before I do the action, I wanted to introduce the concept of tasks that Brandon alluded to. So tasks are configurable workflows, and they can act as a process control mechanism to ensure consistency in your results. These are also included with the installation of ArcGIS Pro 2.8. And these tasks guide you through the step-by-step process to migrate your data into the Parcel Fabric. You can migrate existing simple feature classes in just a few steps, starting with the Setup Information Model task. This guides you through the setup of your Parcel Fabric using your own data model. But in the essence of time, I've already done this. So let's load some data into the Parcel Fabric. I'm going to select my polygons, my just regular old polygons from a file geodatabase, and point them at the Parcel Fabric. So this target data set was built from that data model, setup information model task previously. So I'm just going to run this real quick. So in a moment here, we'll see all of my parcels have been updated into the Parcel Fabric. And what's awesome is that is just the regular append tool. But when paired with the Parcel Fabric, the area, the records, the IDs, and everything have come across and are now part of the Parcel Fabric. You can see I can run it again, and I think that's important to note for this group. You can actually add parcels from non-contiguous data sets. So if you wanted to put your entire archipelago into a single Parcel Fabric, you can do that. So each island can be its own separate fabric, or it can be one large fabric for the entire island chain. Okay, so the next step is enabling parcel topology. So let me just get that started. So with the topology rules enabled, you can append parcels anywhere in the process, and the topology rules will keep everything nice and tidy. So that's like no gaps, no slivers, no overlaps, all of that stuff. The Parcel Fabric will stitch it all together and maintain the contiguous lines. So then the next step would be to create the parcel records using the parcel record name in the attribute field. So I'm going to use field. I'm going to choose the record name as the field. So often these record names can be retrieved from a table in another business system, like your land registry system. Since everything really is a table behind the scenes, using a join and calculating the record names is possible through ArcGIS. So let's run that and create our parcel records. And then our next step will be to finish off the Parcel Fabric. So let's build that out. And the record name is the default. And so we'll finish here. So while that's building, you might notice that there's no bearing or direction on these lines. So I can actually go into the Parcel Fabric and update these lines automatically. Update Togo tool here. And let's just select all of the ones on the screen. Perfect. And now I'll hit update. And just like that, in a few seconds, all of my COGO measurements have been updated. So every single line now has a direction and a bearing, as well as a length, even measuring the radius and the length of the true curve. So now that we have a fresh parcel fabric that's ready to be edited, I'm going to pass it back to Brandon to talk about some of the editing capabilities.
All right, thanks so much, Matt. Great job on that. And we're going to come back to Matt in just a moment. All right, I think Matthew Webster, you're going to transfer control back to Douglas.
All right, let me do that with Douglas. Douglas, so you can share your screen now.
Perfect. Yep. So if we can go to the next one. So the next driver we're going to talk about then is performance and scalability. So let's start with scalability. So the idea here is that you can start small with Parcel Fabric with a single editor deployment and a file geodatabase. So this is, you have maybe a small data set, or you only have one editor, or you just want to sort of try it out and get started that way. That certainly is an option for a small project area. And then the idea is, as needs and complexity increase, maybe you need to have multiple editors. Maybe it's more of an operational product where you're not doing a pilot project, but you're putting it into full production. So there, the step there on that would be deploying multi-user editing and ArcGIS Enterprise, which is something we're going to talk about a fair amount in today's presentation. So once we deploy this in a multi-user editing environment, ArcGIS Enterprise publishes the Parcel Fabric as a feature service. And so in terms of performance, even on very large data sets, the performance is very fast on drawing and editing, which makes sense, right? So you may have small data sets where you have, 10,000 parcels, you may have millions of parcels, you may have somewhere in between, which probably most of you. And the point of this slide is just so you know, to move into a new parcel management software environment, it's good to know ahead of time that when you do that, you're not going to have issues with the performance of the system for your editors. They're not going to have to wait for things to refresh to have your edits accept and show up and that sort of thing. The system is very well suited to very large or very small volumes of data, and it can handle it seamlessly, no problem. And there's a notion of branch versioning too, which we can talk about in more detail as needed. The very next one is service-oriented architecture. So I just kind of gave this away or hinted at this. So when Parcel Fabric in ArcGIS Enterprise is published as a service, a simple way to describe that is that's a live connection to the data, right? So it's not a copy, you're not directly connecting to a database. And so the parcels then are available across the platform, different devices at any time. You can edit in disconnected mode or connected mode anywhere. And so it makes it a lot more accessible, and you can truly say that you've now deployed your parcels and your Parcel Fabric throughout your organization. You can also leverage that live connection to the data, which is what I described as services, to geo-enabled business systems. So Matt actually in his demo, if you'll recall, he just alluded to that, connecting to a third-party system where he joined the table that had other information about, let's say, some property information or permits or property evaluations. So being able to geo-enable business systems and also the business systems that Esri offers is much more feasible using a services-oriented architecture. And it certainly enables a lot more possibilities for extending and customizing applications for advanced workflows. And a little bit more about services. So what are some of those benefits then? So it's easier to administer and to manage permissions. So your map technicians that are doing that editing, they connect to a layer or to the service, not directly to a database. And so that really has to do with bandwidth and your IT network. But the nice thing is, on the flip side of that, citizens also connect to your parcels using that same service. Now, certainly when you're putting it out to the public, we're talking about a read-only situation, right? You just want the public to look at the parcels, to engage with the information, to get what they need, not so much to edit currently or clearly. That's certainly what your employees do. And then when you have surveyors, they can also submit their own data against the service. So it just makes it a lot easier to use the data, edit the data, get access to it, getting into other systems. And again, it's that current authoritative information. So for the technical folks in the room, there are possibilities with REST API to empower thin clients. So we're talking about deploying on different types of devices. But it's also easier to deploy to mobile applications such as Field Maps, Survey 123, Workforce, and also to some of the visualization apps, so the dashboards that you may have seen in other webinars that Spatial has given, or the web app builder or other things. It makes it easier to put parcels into all of those applications. All right, and then, oh, did we lose Douglas's screen? Well, while we work on getting that back, I will tell you the next driver that we're going to focus on then is automation, right? So it's nice to make things more streamlined, make you more efficient, save time, and things like that. So the Parcel Fabric in Pro, it comes with configurable tasks that match the workflows. So your staff, the way they currently do things, it enables you to have kind of the right tool at the right time. And so when things are automated, you have less mouse clicks to complete, you know, those transactions, those workflows that you're doing on a daily basis, the things you do all day long, so to speak. It makes it so that those are more streamlined, less clicks to get the same work done. And you can also capture metrics. How long does it take us to process a survey plan or complete this change to a parcel? And what's our key performance indicators and things like that. And it also creates record geometry, which is the footprint of the legal transactions. So a lot of benefits there in terms of your workflows. All right, so that was very quickly a couple more of those drivers. And as promised, I'm going to hand things back over to my colleague Matt for another demo. And he's going to be showing you this time the editing environment in this product. And Matt, you are muted if you're speaking. Okay, he may have had some technical issues here. Bear with us.
Okay,
Please.
I think we're back here.
Perfect.
All right. So you should be seeing my screen. We're back where we left off. So another typical workflow begins with legal documents. So for example, maybe a deed is recorded that states that I need to do a boundary line adjustment, or a new survey has been come out and the legal opinion of the boundaries has changed. So in this case, this kind of a made up case here, but a shed was built here that crosses these parcel boundaries. The neighbors came to an agreement in place, and then they want to adjust the parcel boundaries to represent the new areas of responsibility. So to start the transaction, we start by creating a record in the Parcel Fabric. And I'm going to give my parcel a number name, and I want the record type to reflect a boundary line adjustment. And these domains are all part of when I set up my own data model. So if you use these terms, you can use those. If you use other ones, that's totally fine as well. So let's create that record. Okay, and now I'm just interested in these two parcels here. So let's take that, and we will copy the lines to my new record. I'm going to keep the attributes that I have from there, and I want to only show the active record to keep my screen nice and tidy. So now we can see that my parcels are the only ones showing, so I know exactly what I'm working on. And so let's get rid of that old boundary line here. We're not going to need that. So looking at my deed, it also states that I need to take this curve right here and split it into two equal 45-foot segments. So again, I'm going to use the divide tool, and that is a regular ArcGIS Pro tool, but when paired with the Parcel Fabric, it gets some additional capabilities. So I'm going to set it by distance, and I'm going to do 45 feet. And I'm going to change the direction here. I want equal repetitions, so 2 times 45 feet. And so what's really great about this tool is you can see that I have a remaining Togo length. So that's gonna result in some small pieces and may not reflect the legal description of the area. So I can have this tool distribute that remaining length equally. So each line will indeed be of equal length. So let's run that. And you can see that the Parcel Fabric, the labeling on the back end, shows me the true curve radius and the length. All right, so let's create that new boundary line adjustment here. So create a new parcel line and adjust some of the parameters here. Okay, so I want to start my new parcel line right here at this line here. So what I can do is create a new boundary from this corner. So let's snap it there, and then I want to constrain this line, right? So I need it to be perfectly parallel to this. So there's actually a keyboard shortcut here. I can just press P on my keyboard. And you can see that is constraining my line. So that line is perfectly parallel to the line below it every time. And sometimes our deeds give us a bearing and direction and a length, which is great. So in this case, I'm going to accept the bearing, and I know that my distance is going to be 25 feet. So I can hit enter here, and that stops my line, right? So now I have a nice 25 foot parallel line. The next thing I want to do is snap that line to my tax parcels here and finish that up. Right. So now we have a brand new parcel, right? But we still need to do a couple more things. So now we're ready to build our parcels, and to do that, we will use a nice tool called Build Parcels, right? So looking here, I'll describe these more, but these are called seeds. So these will help your parcel grow out. So let's just build the active parcels right now. And now my new parcels have been put into the Parcel Fabric, and I will update its geometry again. And there we are. So our new coordinate geometry, our distance and bearing has been updated, and our boundary line adjustment is completed. But as Brandon talked about, we can also edit parcels from services. So I'm going to show you how to do that too. So looking at my data source here, the last editing that I had been doing was all in a file geodatabase. So I was working, a single editor environment. But these parcels happen to be in a much larger city that has more complex editing requirements. In this case, I'm using my own version from a service. So I can do all the same edits, but inside that service-driven architecture. So let's take a look at how that works. So inside my version here, I can take a look at the versioning tab, and I want to manage some versions. Take a look and see who else is in here. So myself and then a few other folks are working in this at the same time. So let's get started on an editing workflow inside this enterprise or services-driven architecture. So I need to subdivide this parcel into 6 equal parts. So I can actually follow the same pattern as the previous edits, but now in a versioned environment. So we will create a record. And this will be a subdivision, and create that record. Okay, I need to copy my lines to that record. Okay, so now I have, this is the only parcel that I'm working on, and I can actually use the same tools that I spoke about earlier. So I'm going to use the divide tool again, and just select that one. And in this case, I am going to do 45 feet again. And then this time I'm going to do 6 different repetitions. And I want to distribute that length equally. So I'll hit divide here. And now you can see that this parcel line has been divided equally 6 different times. I need to repeat that for the other side. So just select it. The nice thing about ArcGIS Pro is it maintains the parameters I had set up previously. So I can just hit divide again, and it will copy over that same action. And then we're following that exact same process, right? So I'm going to create these parcel lines again, and make sure we're having separate lines each time. There we go. Okay. So each one here. Okay, so I've created my parcel lines and I'm almost ready to build these parcels out. But notice I only have 1 seed, but I need to have 6 new parcels, right? So there's a tool called Create Seeds. So this is going to create these new seeds, and I'm going to get rid of this old one here. And let's create seeds again, make sure we get all 6. All right, there we go. So as I alluded to, seeds are what your parcel will grow from up to the parcel lines that we just drew. So I guess consider it like a plant that will grow to the size of its container. So let's go ahead and build those records. All right, so in a few seconds there, we have our 6 new parcel records, but each parcel needs to have a unique ID, right? So we actually have a tool that makes pretty good quick work of that, and that is called the sequential numbering tool. So I'm going to have my parcels start at 1, and I guess we can say, let's make this more accurate into a parcel number. So we'll do more fancy, and then I select, click it on one side, click on the other. And my numbers will sequentially number here. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, moving on. I'm actually going to pass it back to Brandon to talk about the last few of our drivers.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and actually show my screen because I believe we've got some technical issues. All right, bear with me.
Yeah, you're correct, Brandon. If you could just share your screen, that would be awesome. I think.
From my mobile. Can you hear me?
All right, let me mute Doug in the meantime.
Okay. All right, so we'll just press ahead then.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Just a second here then. All right, Matthew, is that good?
Seeing the screen as yet.
All right, you can see it now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, so let's keep going here. So the next one to consider then is parcel lineage. So if you think about it, it makes a parcel in terms of its status defendable and a change to it. If you have something that documents what created the parcel and retired the previous one, right? So you split or you merged or some sort of change, any sort of change for that matter. So the Parcel Fabric in ArcGIS Pro supports parcel lineage. And that means you can visualize the lineage, right? So you can see the current parcel, you can see the parent parcels that led to it. And then there's a record transaction that every time a feature or a change is initiated, there's a record to document it, or there is at least a way to have that record be associated to that change. And so it really enables you to compare that before and after picture. So it enables you to do chain of title research, that lineage of, how did things come to be as far back as such things were maintained anyway. And map navigation to look at the changes and when lines get split and so forth. So parcel lineage is one of those key pieces and key drivers in Parcel Fabric. Next one is the notion of multidimensional cadastre, so 2D and even 3D. So if you think about two-dimensional parcels, which is really kind of what we're talking about here, as the piece that you're probably already familiar with. So if we have an elevation, we have used our surfaces, we have an elevation and a height of the building, then we can extrude and actually create a three-dimensional model of that building, and then supporting actual editing in 3 dimensions. And so you could capture that from a variety of sources. So it could be a stereoscopic view, some stereo imagery, maybe some LiDAR, right? That from which you can compute you actually have a record of what the building height is, or perhaps other types of measurements. Maybe you have some oblique imagery or other sources. And then when we say 4-dimensional, what that simply means is comparing 2 of those instances from 2 moments in time, right? So 3-dimensional from comparing and contrasting 2 moments in time. So for some of you, this may be something you'd be interested in looking at right away, perhaps for some of your buildings, your condominiums and so forth. But at the very least, just know this is something that is still something that we Esri are working on, but it's a capability that's there that you could certainly use to do 3-dimensional cadastre as opposed to just 2D. And then finally, we have, this is really the last one we're really going to talk about, which will be digital submission. So this is the idea that when there is a change that is being made and there's a survey plan that's generated by a surveyor on the property, they can actually submit that change to you, the cadastral agency, in a digital submission methodology. And so you can actually have a rule or a group of defined submitters, right? So the surveyors that work in your country, and they can be registered and you can know who they are. So when they submit a survey plan for a property change, and it gives them the ability to actually submit that not just in digital form, but through various means, such as some sort of a portal, let's say, where they can actually upload that plan that can actually be checked against your fabric, right? So as opposed to getting a paper plan that it has to be scanned, and then there's no ready-made way to have that be a vector file, a CAD or a GIS file that you could compare against your existing Parcel Fabric. This just essentially bridges those 2 worlds and makes that a lot more efficient. And so the back office work is limited or reduced as far as, again, we keep saying this, the key performance indicators. How long does it take, and therefore how much does it cost us to receive these in, process those, approve the changes, incorporate them into the fabric and that sort of thing. It reduces the amount of supplemental data and the amount of time it takes to push to production and to share that with other departments. So we've thrown a lot of drivers at you. I did just want to mention there are some others that for sake of time, we'll kind of gloss over, but just to let you know that they are there, such as coordinate-based cadastre, and also insights. Douglas mentioned at the outset, system of insight is one of those 3 components. And so what we mean by here is there are tools that enable you to actually visualize the accuracy and the quality of your data. So showing spatially where certain areas in a given, let's say any area that you're interested, the ability to visualize the quality and the accuracy of that data and show where there may be certain areas where there's more problems, and maybe you want to focus your efforts as far as capturing better control and having surveyors go out to those areas. Also looking at your staff, your resources, your operational indicators, where are our staff, how much time are we spending in the field, and so on and so forth, all based around the idea of managing your parcels and having insight or visualization into how we're doing in all of those areas and the accuracy. And with that, one last time, I'm going to have things over to Matt for his final demonstration, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up with some concluding thoughts.
All right, thank you, Brandon. So another common workflow, and we want to meet you where you are on the spectrum, is if you have CAD drawings, is there a way to get those into the Parcel Fabric? Well, yeah, the answer is absolutely. So by using the same patterns I just showed you using GIS data, we can add and align the CAD data. So let me show you what I mean. So we start with this Forbes crossing. It's a new record that I created. And going in, I'm going to select all of my CAD lines. So everything from my CAD drawing is here. And I can just copy those lines to the tax parcels. And it's going to copy all the lines to the Parcel Fabric. It's going to generate the seeds. So you can see that the seed has been generated for each boundary area. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this quickly and just create the parcels. So now all my CAD drawing has been entered in the Parcel Fabric, but we see some things like this, and maybe some misalignments. The survey opinion may be different than the topology of the Parcel Fabric, so we can actually take all that stuff and align it in just a few buttons here. So I'm going to open the Align Parcels tool. And I can set my tolerance. So anything within, it'll generate links within whatever number I put here. I'm gonna have just one foot, and then I'm going to automatically generate those. So generate links within the tolerance, and let's create a link here. So I'm going to link to text, and I want to generate this link to this line. Okay. And generate links, and hit Align Parcels. Let's try that one more time. We're getting some demo gremlins today. All right, let's do one more adjustment here. Okay, there we go. And let's hit Align on that. And it will shift my parcels to that new line. So in a few steps, if we didn't have any demo daemons, we would have a nicely aligned import from CAD directly into my Parcel Fabric. So I'm going to pass it back, I believe, to Douglas now to wrap it all up.
I will share my screen for you here, Douglas.
Right. Well, if you could just project and I'll talk, Brandon.
Exactly.
The last couple of slides. I think your network is more reliable. All right, thank you. So, in summary, there might be a couple of, let's call them myths that are discouraging people from taking the plunge, taking the step. Let me use the word plunge, making the step. Could I have on that screen again, Brandon? Thank you. These misconceptions could be like, it's too expensive an implementation, or the GIS facility deployment is too complex, or that the data model is too rigid. The operational workflows are rigid. The data cleanup is required prior to migration. Accessibility is for experts only, and there is a lack of parcel lineage or history and lack of linkage to the parcel originating record. But all of these myths have just been addressed by Brandon and Matthew. As you can see, he has dealt with the fact that you could use a single user or a server deployment. And even when you're using a server deployment, you could use a single, what they call a base site deployment, which is much easier to manage than having multiple computers to run your identity server, your web server, your database server. All of that can be run as virtual machines on one server. As you can see, but before I even go there, let's deal with the question of affordability. There is a program called LAMP, Land Administration Modernization Program. It's a generous program from Esri that allows selected agencies in selected countries, land agencies in selected countries, to access a bundle of software. And all of the components that we have spoken of about land administration in terms of to support the Parcel Fabric, which is the parcel management, the valuation, and the stakeholder engagement, all of those are provided in this bundle from Esri. And with that program being available, it is very affordable for you to acquire all of these tools and embark on your modernization. So that's the most important thing. The LAMP is available to most of the countries in the Caribbean. And in fact, there are 77 countries designated around the world that have been marked as eligible to get the LAMP benefits. Just going back down the list of, busting these myths. As you can see, there is no rigid operational workflow. With the task that Matthew demonstrated, you can configure the workflow to match your particular jurisdiction and how you do land administration in your agency. As we say, the cleanup doesn't have to be done prior to migration, as was the case when you had the ArcMap Parcel Fabric. You can import the records and then clean up after. In terms of accessible only to experts, no. With WebGIS, we should be enabled using when you set up the enterprise deployment, stakeholders can access the Parcel Fabric and information from the Parcel Fabric from anywhere, from any device at any time. So if you, for instance, you're running the system in a particular location, for example, your country has a couple islands and you have some agencies on one island, another agency on another island, or even if your agencies are in different locations, so there is no local area network connecting them together. Because when you set up the enterprise in your premise, you have WebGIS, and because it is services driven, the persons are able to connect to the Parcel Fabric or Parcel Fabric generated information from anywhere at any time on any device. Of course, now you saw demonstrated by Matthew that parcel history and lineage is built in. And also because it is record driven, and the core part of the Parcel Fabric are the legal records that the parcel is built on, that also now is built in. Next slide. So right now, I think it's time for us to get ready for action. So the first thing you'd want to do is, if you're not already on the LAMP, the Land Administration Modernization Program, if you're not already enrolled, now is the time to enroll. It's a very generous program. And you can go to the Esri landing page that is being displayed in the right corner of the top right-hand corner of the slide. And from there, you can do an application. And then that will start the ball rolling to get you into the lab and get into this valuable bundle of tools. Of course, when you're ready to delve, when you have the tools and you're ready to delve into the migration to the ArcGIS Parcel Fabric, the ArcGIS Pro Parcel Fabric, you can engage with Spatial. And of course, you know, we're supported by partners like ESR. If you are ready for the next stage, which is to stand up your ArcGIS enterprise to enable WebGIS in your organization, again, engage with spatial innovation. Again, we are supported by partners including Esri. Now, if you are ready to share data with your stakeholders and the public, again, Spatial Innovision is here to help you. And we are also, again, supported by our partners Esri. Of course, there are a lot of key resources that are available to help you. One of them is the Parcel Fabric meetup, run by some of the preeminent land administration professionals in Esri, as well as there is a very handy tool, a story map on Parcel Fabric, which is also available online, that you'll be able to run and get some more insight and understanding at your own pace into how the Parcel Fabric can be implemented. Now, when you engage with Spatial, there are some key steps that we will take you through. Next slide, Brandon. So Spatial will help you to go through this process. Of course, having enrolled into the land, so you have access to the software and the user license. We'll help you to evaluate the process and your data model, your information model, in terms of setting up your parcel types and the workflows and different topological and attribute rules that would go with your schema. We will help you to assemble your data that you're going to be migrating to the Parcel Fabric. We'll help you to set up the file geodatabase based on the data model that we would have designed that suits your jurisdiction. And from that, create a feature data set, create a Parcel Fabric, and then create the parcel types that match your jurisdiction and your needs. When that is done, then we'll help you to migrate the records, whether they are in the form of shapefiles, CAD, or the form of GIS geometric model data set, or if you had ArcMap Parcel Fabric, to migrate it to the ArcGIS Pro Parcel Fabric. And once that is done, we do the cleanup, perform the topological cleanup, determine which rules you want to turn on and off. And then you're ready now to step up to the enterprise that will enable WebGIS in your organization. And we'll help you with that. And once that is done, we'll then populate the enterprise geodatabase from the file geodatabase that we started with above. And when that is done, then you're ready to share with your appropriate stakeholders and leverage your modernized land administration to the public and to across the government within your different countries. So at this point, we are ready to take your questions. So you can type them in the chat and we will field the questions. I think we have some time for some questions. Oh, by the way, just to give you our contact information, I'm at VP Research at spatialvision.com, and Brandon Tartelot is at, as you can see on the screen, and there is Matthew as well. You can see that they are very knowledgeable. Brandon has a background in actual land administration, and as you can see, Matthew is very knowledgeable as a product solution engineer. Let's see if let's check the We have no questions so far. And let me check chat if we have questions on the chat. Okay. Brandon, do you want to say a couple of words?
I guess for the moment, I'll just mention that I'll be sure to put here in just a moment the links to the 3 items that we had 2 slides ago. I'll put those into the chat as well, and then you know, we'll send that out as a follow-up to the webinar. You'll have those links there as well.
Right. Oh, Brandon, I just detected a little issue with my mic. So I hope that most of the attendees were able to at least follow most of what I was saying. Not my bad. So thank you for attending. And as we say, we are going to be doing another webinar on land administration. We will probably be looking at the evaluation as well as the stakeholder engagement. So you can contact us for more information, and we will have to clean up the recording because of the tech issues we had with the internet, but that will be posted from our Spatial Innovision website so persons can access that. We will also work to make the presentation available in terms of the slide deck. So at this time, on behalf of all of us at Spatial and our colleagues from Esri, I want to say thank you, and we are going to sign off. So Matthew, just a final word from you.
Do you mean me, Douglas? Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And if you have any questions about what you saw during the demonstrations, don't hesitate to reach out to the emails that were posted in the slides. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.